Hey everyone, so at skillcapped we watch a ton of footage from low elo, like a ton. Through the hundreds of hours of silver, gold, and platinum gameplay, we constantly see the same game-losing, easy-to-solve problems again and again and again. For today's video, we challenged ourselves to pick 5 random replays from gold elo. Only 5, so that we weren't cherry-picking examples that supported what we wanted to talk about, but showed the actual mistakes that are common. To none of our surprise, we once again saw the same issues that we are constantly seeing in these randomly selected replays. So today, we'll be diving into which mistakes are most consistent, other crucial mistakes that we saw these players making, and of course, how you can identify and fix them in your own gameplay so you stop losing games to silly mistakes and up your jungle game across the board. Let's jump right into it. To start, let's go over those super common, near universal mistakes that we see low elo junglers making. First of which is starting the game by taking 3 camps that don't give level 3. This is something that we knew was common and have seen a ton. But even we were shocked to see this 4 times in the 5 replays we watched. Now, as a super quick and clear disclaimer, you will see pro players doing 4 camp level 3 clears. However, they have very specific reasons for why they are doing them in specific situations. All we're saying here is that most average players do not, and their jungling will be improved by using more consistent, proven routes with fewer vulnerabilities. Anyway, let's take a look. In this game, our gold for Volibear starts out the game by doing red, raptors, wolves, not hitting level 3 after 3 camps. In this game, our gold elo Lee Sin starts out taking the blue before pathing up to do wolves, then crossing through mid and taking red there. Once again, level 2 after 3 camps. This Elise, among a myriad of other issues, oh boy, does red, wolves, blue. And finally, another gold elo Kane here who starts raptors, then does wolves into blue for another level 2 clear. We're honestly not sure if players are doing this because they don't know that it's a problem, or because they don't realize it's happening or how to fix it. So let's quickly cover both of those possibilities, starting with, yes, this is a problem. You should pretty much never do a clear that won't give you level 3 after 3 camps. It just leaves you in such an insanely weak and vulnerable position, requiring you to take a 4th camp before you can do anything useful. And yes, some champions can be useful at level 2, but you're level 2 after your first camp. Then take 2 more and you've gained no power while laners have caught up in levels, the enemy jungler has hit level 3, etc. If you want to be useful at level 2, you'll usually want to do so shortly after hitting level 2, not 2 camps later. This is probably the easiest way to lose a game to an invade. You're just leaving yourself in this super weak and vulnerable state for absolutely no reason or gain. If you get invaded by a level 3 double buff jungler when you're level 2, yeah, just disastrous. Okay, now for the other part of this problem, that some players may just not know which set of 3 camps will give them level 3. And it's actually super simple. So let's run through it real quick here to make sure that you never run into this problem, since it's such a big problem, so common, and so easy to fix. Alright, there are 4 different levels of XP that you'll receive from camps on your first clear. Camp XP can fluctuate throughout the game depending on how much you've killed a camp, causing it to respawn and level up, but at the start of the game, things will always be nice and predictable. At the top, as the number 1 XP giver, we've got Krugs. Below that, on our 2nd tier, Gromp. Then we have Blue and Red on their own 3rd tier, before finally, Raptors and Wolves both give the lowest XP of any camps. So, how do we hit level 3 off of 3 camps? Well, it's super simple. If your clear includes Krugs, it's literally impossible not to hit level 3, even if your other 2 camps are Raptors and Wolves, the lowest XP camps. So if you're doing Krugs, nothing to worry about. Obviously, we still want to think about optimal pathing beyond just hitting level 3, but we're just solving this one problem right now. Moving on to Gromp, you don't quite get this same luxury that you got with Krugs. If you take Gromp and Wolves plus Raptors, this will not get you level 3. To hit level 3 with Gromp, all you need to do is take one of the tier 3 camps, red or blue, then you can take whatever else you like. Any combination that does not include Krugs or Gromp within your jungle will not get you level 3 after 3 camps, which is exactly the combination that we saw all of those gold elo junglers doing just a minute ago. The only kind of niche exception to this is a 3 buff start, like this. This is actually a viable invade path in some cases, so it is worth noting. But obviously that's not what we saw our low elo junglers doing. Maybe they like to start at a buff, then clear the camps on the way to the next one. I don't know. Either way, yeah, this is a super simple fix. So let's quickly look at some of the most common routes that accomplish this and are a bit more viable than the extreme examples we just showed. First up, any champion that is going to full clear will just naturally accomplish this by taking any full quadrant of the jungle before moving on to the next or ganking, whatever. Next, probably the most common combination that we see is double buffs plus Gromp. It's a super fast level 3 that gives you both buffs. It's great for single target machete clears. After that, they can either gank or start to reverse clear, which is a route that we've covered in the past. And those are by far the most common basic level 3 routes that we see. Of course, pathing is super varied and there will be some other options, like the 3 buff start that we looked at earlier. But yeah, you should now be perfectly equipped to never make this mistake again. By the way, if you're enjoying the video, a sub to the channel would be incredible. Alright, moving on to our second super common mistake that we see all the time and that reared its ugly head within these 5 replays, not pushing the scuttle crab correctly. Again, this one is such an easy fix, so let's check it out. For this one, we're going to join back with the Volibear that we saw earlier sinning on his initial clear. Despite his pathing problems, he's able to get off to a solid start this game, picking up a kill in the mid lane, then even getting a kill topside just a minute later. He's 2-0, goes back, grabs a nice buy, then runs back onto the map to find his Raptors counter jungle. He blows some time hanging around bottom and farming, but later we see him here, chasing a bug away from his red and getting flash. He follows Kha'Zix into the river, starting up Scuttle and smiting it away when Kha'Zix threatens to steal. Kassadin and Voli overchase onto Kha'Zix, start up the blue, and eventually start a fight in which 4 members of the blue team eventually go down for only 2 red. This was a huge throw after Voli's strong start to the game. But what does this have to do with Scuttle? There were a lot of other issues there, right? Yeah, for sure. We're not going to argue that the only problem here was how Voli managed Scuttle, but it was the first and ended up being a very significant one. Let's go back and take a closer look. So at this moment when Voli starts up the Scuttle, what do you think he should have done differently? And what would it have changed? Take a few seconds to think. So Voli knows for sure that Kha'Zix is in the area. He just chased him here. So he should 100% move around to the other side of Scuttle, like this, and push it down and maybe a bit toward mid. This would make it pretty much impossible for Kha'Zix to contest safely with Cass having prio. And this would allow Voli to save his smite, which he could then use to secure the blue buff and heal up later. Now obviously he should have also not chased Kha'Zix so far either and started to kite the blue back right away to avoid Brand's damage, but you get the idea. His management of Scuttle was a huge problem here that helped throw the game. Often mismanaging Scuttle isn't as obvious or disastrous as this though. It's just a mistake that goes unnoticed, which is why it must be so common. In this game, our gold Lee Sin finds a really successful play here in the mid lane after the enemy Hecarim overextends under tower. After that, he immediately moves to the top side Scuttle Crab, which is fine. But he's pushing it top. Why is this wrong? Take a few seconds to think. If you said that Renekton had prio topside, great job, but that's only half of the issue. Not only do we want to generally avoid pushing Scuttle toward lanes where our teammates are shoved in to avoid being rotated on, but we also want to think about what our next step is and move that way, right? What do you think a good next step is for Lee Sin here? Spoiler, it's not ganking top. Jax has like 100 health and Renekton already recalled. If you said to secure bot crab for the double Scuttle start, yeah, this is a great chance to do that. So obviously Lee should be pushing this crab down to bottom and killing it here, perfectly and efficiently transitioning into that play. He does essentially the same thing later in the game, pushing the Scuttle bottom where no one is even in lane instead of toward mid where Yasuo has the push. He predictably ends up running all the way back from bot lane toward mid after. So just in these two little clips, he's already wasted about 20 seconds for no reason, running back to where he actually wants to be after pushing Scuttle to the opposite side of the map. 20 seconds is a huge deal for such a simple problem to fix. Clearly, even when mismanaging Scuttle doesn't have disastrous results like it did for Volibear, it can still really hurt your efficiency. So always be thinking about both where you're going next as well as how to avoid being roamed on by sticking by any pushing lanes that you have nearby. Also, as a quick side note on the Scuttle crabs while we're here, one thing that we want to point out is that how in low elo, players tend to take them down when they aren't under threat. This last little section was actually a perfect example of this. Let's step back a bit as Lee comes out of base. We know that he had that great play mid. He's up in gold and XP on Hecarim, and we just saw that he ran back top again after respawning. Hecarim started the game bot, died mid, then ran straight back top. What do you think Lee could do differently here instead of taking Wolves then Scuttle like he does? Okay, so knowing that he has the lead, he could just walk straight from base into Hecarim's bot side, which is 100% up, since Hecarim hasn't been back there since the start of the game. He can drop a ward in the Raptor Brush. He has a control ward that he can drop near red, and he can even Scryer's Bloom the Krugs to see if Hecarim has recalled and reset to Krugs yet. This whole time, he's getting great vision, counter jungling, potentially running into Hecarim and pressuring him out of his own jungle, and Scuttle is completely safe with all that vision that he has just there waiting for him. This is a way more proactive play that extends his lead and will still secure the crab. So, when you're ahead or have control, don't be afraid to invade, then come back to Scuttle. If you have vision and are tracking the enemy jungler, it should be there for you safe and sound. Alright, next up for our third and final super common mistake we see low elo junglers making, it's their level 1 trinket choice. Quite a while ago now, this revelation swept through the jungle community that you could buy a yellow trinket at level 1, drop the ward, recall, and swap to a sweeper and essentially get to use both very early on in the game. This really caught on, probably because it was just a really novel trick that is really easy to digest and understand. We see it all the time from players who do this every game. No questions, likely just thinking this is the optimal way to play it. But we want to make sure to dispel that myth and line of thought today. Doing this recall sweeper buy is often a terrible decision that hamstrings your ability to make good choices in the early game. For a first look at this idea, let's take a short break from our gold elo friends to look at a slightly better jungler, Damwon Gaming's Canyon, who many consider to be at least one of the top 3 junglers in the world. In this game that we actually had a whole video on a couple of weeks ago, Canyon pulls off this insane invade and counter jungle route where he just runs circles around Genji's Clid, keeping pace with perfect lane CS purely by farming the jungle. One of the absolute core aspects of this insane route was his ability to drop his yellow trinket in this brush here at 205, then again here immediately at 403. This vision was paramount to the insane lead that he built this game. But I'm sure you've all seen pros or high elo players doing this strategy, so what's the deal? Well, this trick can be really good when you need to use your ward at level 1, as is often the case in professional play, challenger elo, or when you're worried about being invaded. But if you don't need to ward for safety or info at level 1, as is more often than not the case in average elo games, having a ward to place deep vision is just insanely valuable and should not be overlooked. In 3 of the 5 replays that we looked at, the junglers did this trick and started their route with sweeper, none of them doing it either correctly or in a situation where it was necessary. All of these players, with their sweepers, either found themselves in the enemy jungle or had opportunities to invade where they could have dropped amazing wards had they not gone sweeper. Also, this is obviously super anecdotal, but only one of them even used their sweepers before their first base, and that person didn't even find a ward, which isn't always the point of sweeping, but you get the idea. So we really encourage you to think twice before using this catchy little trick that looks cool, but is very often not worth doing. Keep that warding trinket whenever you can, and look for chances to place high quality deep vision. Anyway, that's going to do it for our 3 super common, super important, easy to fix problems that we constantly see from low elo junglers. By the way, you should know where these videos come from. Our hyper improvement platform skillcapped is by far the best place to be if you want to actually improve at League of Legends. You can input your rank before you sign up and see where we think you'll climb to. If you don't reach that rank while actively using skillcapped, you can claim a full refund. That's like a gym membership guaranteeing you'll get ripped or you get your money back. We offer this because our service really does work, and if it doesn't, you shouldn't have to pay for it. So be sure to check us out after this. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you all next time.